see you this morning.
So for people who aren't familiar, tell us about the podcast. What do you guys talk about?
Well, this is a podcast that I've actually been doing since 2016. And then in 2020, I have my oldest friend with me. We've known each other since pre-K, and we do the podcast together. And now, it's just kind of like our relationship. We talk about things that are current events or just kind of stories from our childhood. And people really like it because it reminds them of their relationship with their best friend and kind of the weird conversations that you would have with someone close to you.
So you have your best friend, Frank Alvarez, who's a part of this with you. You guys just sit down, you kind of air out. Sometimes you air out, I don't want to say your dirty laundry, but that's kind of what it seems like. How does that work? Do you guys kind of have like a routine where you're going to know what you're talking about going into it, or it's just free flowing?
It is very free flowing. I think before we record each week, we try to have certain topics that we would talk about, so things that are like current events. But most of the time we don't get to them because we're both very chatty. So once we start talking, old stories come up or tangents it kind of just goes all over the place. So it's very unplanned. Nothing is kind of rehearsed or anything like that. But I think that's why people tend to enjoy it.
So across platforms, you guys have over 1 million followers. Did you ever think it'd get this big?
Absolutely not. I mean, there's no way to predict that it would, get as big as it is gotten. And honestly, now doing the live shows, it's a reminder and an indicator of like how far it's kind of gotten because it's just me and him there making each other laugh with our producer. But when you go out to the live shows and you see all these people show up and supporting, it just feels like, very surreal. I mean, the numbers are definitely surreal as well, but seeing the people in the seats is unbelievable.
Just to remind our viewers, you said you started this how long ago?
In 2016, I believe, but I started doing it with Frank as my full-time co-host in 2020.
Got it. And so during that time, this has really exploded. You're now taking this show on the road. What can people expect? Because you're going to be in Chicago, I believe, this Saturday, right?
Yes, we will be at the Chicago Theater. It is a sold-out show, which is incredible. We did one last year. Theater is unbelievable. We were very blown away by it. And, just on the wall, like a lot of famous people, we saw Frank Sinatra's signature there. So that just kind of put it all in perspective for us. But yeah, it's just been truly amazing. And we're very blessed and thankful that, we get to do this and have fun.
I'm always inspired, and I know Justine has a question, but I'm always inspired when I hear people say that they started something from the ground up, literally with really, no big names, no major money behind it. You started this, you said in 2016, and then Frank joined you. What were you both doing at the time when you started this podcast? What job were you working before this?
Well, Frank was working for an insurance company during that time, and for me, I have been doing internet content and video content and like YouTube stuff since about 2011 or 2010, and it wasn't my full-time job at that point. I was working at a pizza place. I was delivering pizzas and whatnot, and just kind of like trying to make my money in various ways. I eventually got a job as an editor and producer, which I was very underqualified for. I was lucky to be there. So I was able to do that for 2 years, which kind of kept me afloat and taught me a lot about producing and, editing and everything else as far as video goes. So I've gotten very lucky along the way, gaining some education about how to progress in my own personal career.
Was there ever a specific video that you realized, oh, this is doing great. This is what's spiraling us into success?
In the case of me and Frank personally, we're the type of people that we have very strong opinions and we like to argue and stuff like that. And there was a time specifically where we were talking about Pop-Tart flavors or something, and he had mentioned his, and we had this kind of back and forth, and it went very viral, and it ended up on like Good Morning America, and my mother's favorite anchors were talking about it, and then that landed us like a deal with Pop-Tarts where we did a sort of collaboration with them. That's probably the first one that I remember going like, wow, this is kind of exploded and people enjoy us kind of arguing, and this is not something that me and Frank have to put on. Like, this is what we do 24/7. We can argue about anything. So it was cool to see that.
What do you say to people, because the podcast space at least seems
Hmm.
very saturated. It seems like so many people, grandma's starting a podcast now, right?
Right.
What do you say to the people that maybe want to enter this space and they feel like it's saturated and they're not sure if it will be lucrative, if this can be something that you can do full time?
Um, also a luxury that I had when you start in 2016 is that you can just kind of make it about whatever because no one was really doing it that much back then. At the moment, everyone feels like they're interesting enough to do a podcast, which I don't even know if we would, be able to make it in where the market is now. But I think if you were to create a podcast today, it would have to have some sort of hook that is interesting. It's something that kind of sets it apart rather than just being, well, it's me and my friend and we kind of talk about stuff. Like I said, I don't think that we have a successful podcast now, but I think that's because of where it started. But if we were to come to the market now, I just think there's too many factors. There's too many shows that are too similar. So I would try to create a concept that is very interesting. And obviously, you have to be good at your job and good at speaking and good at kind of keeping the conversation going. But if you can come up with a really interesting concept, then I think that kind of sets you aside from everyone who's just creating a podcast seemingly just to create one, and it seems like a fun thing to do, which I also encourage as well. Just from a purely business standpoint, if you want to stand out immediately, I think that you should have an interesting hook. But if anyone is interested in podcasting, I think they should get into it. You never know what could happen. I mean, I would never guess that we would end up where we were just by kind of being ourselves and hanging out and people like listening to that. So there's no telling what could actually work out. So you should do it no matter what.
So now that
I
you
love
guys
that.
are going on tour, what made you guys want to actually go on tour and take the podcast on tour? And then when people are watching, is it just like you guys are filming another episode, or what's the difference?
The main reason why we went on tour is money. No, the reason why, no, the reason we went on tour is because I honestly like we put off going on tour for a while because we didn't want to just sit in chairs, stare at each other, do the podcast, and have people spend money to come out and watch that. Like that to me didn't feel like a good enough reason for people to come out and spend their night. So we tried to come up with a show that we thought was different than other shows people would go to, but also still kind of remain, uh, you know, loyal to our brand and why people like us. So we had named the first part of our tour the Basement Yard Experience because we wanted to feel like an experience. So there is some stand up involved, there is some crowd interaction stuff, there's some video content. So there's a lot of moving parts. There's parts where we have some fans come on stage. And yeah, so we try to make it as fun as possible. And the reason why we went on tour also is because I think that it's just like a good way to see how far you can kind of take it. I mean, this is an avenue that kind of opened up in podcasting, and I mean, it is lucrative, but it also is, a skill. Like if you can be a live performer in addition to doing it in a podcast, you kind of like open up opportunities for yourself. So we wanted to be good at it and not just do it. Maybe some people just do it because it is lucrative and they just kind of like get their money and go home. But I know that we have like an interest in being good live performers and want to put on a good show for people. We don't want people to leave feeling like, well, why did I pay for that?
Joe, I'm not asking you to give us your bank account routing number and bank account number, but when you say lucrative, for the
Mhm.
average person, that may mean $100,000. How much money are we talking about in this? Is this something that could sustain you and literally create generational wealth?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in our case specifically, we've been very blessed to have a big audience, and we actually have I know that everyone says this, but I feel like we have one of the most supportive fan bases in the world because I'm at one point I went to Chicago one time, but I didn't know that Chicago was such a supportive city for us. And last year when we did Chicago theater, it sold out very quickly. It's like 3,500 people. And I don't know anyone from Chicago. So the fact that that happened is crazy. We also have a very supportive fan base when it comes to a platform called Patreon, where people can pay a certain amount every single month and they get extra content from us. And we have a very big supportive part of our audience who does that. So yeah, in our case, we have a big show, but we do really well because we have such a supportive fan base. And I like to think that the exchange feels even on their part. I mean, personally, it will never feel even to me. I think that, we're extremely overpaid for what we do, but I like to think that they feel like they're getting something out of that, because this has been years of them being supportive in that way. And, I've tried not to sell things to people my entire career. And now that we're doing live shows, which admittedly, like, our audience was kind of like eager to go to, we've been able to feel that support, and it's amazing. So yeah, it's definitely like helping us out. I mean, we have a studio in Brooklyn, that is a big studio. We built a couple sets there, and I run the company. Everyone has health insurance, and their families have health insurance, and everyone's doing well. So we're just incredibly thankful.
That's great.
That's great. One more question before we wrap it up. Outside of the live shows, what else can fans expect from you in the future?
I think that, we're always thinking about the future, and what that looks like. I think that if you're going to do this content sort of thing, I think you constantly have to be operating out of fear, that it could go away at any moment. People could stop caring, especially if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. So you want to try and keep it fresh. You want to have new ideas. I do think that in the future, I can say that we will have upped production in some sort of way. We also do, a lot of video content, so that, taking the next step, and maybe there'll be some new shows on the horizon as well. But I'm very excited for where we're headed as a team, and I'm happy with where the live shows are as well, and just really excited to get to Chicago and put on a show for everyone.
We've run out of time, but I really wanted to ask you, how do you deal with all those ladies and maybe some fellas too jumping in those DMs? But we didn't get to it, so I'll have to do it the next time we talk to you. Tell people real quick where they can find you if they've never heard of your podcast before. What platforms?
You can find it on anywhere you get your podcast, so Spotify, Apple, wherever it is. It's called The Basement Yard, and yeah, you could just find it there.
I left you speechless with that last comment. I noticed it. All right, thank you so much. It was great talking to
Joe.
you. Good luck with everything
Thank you
that
so
you have
much.
going on.